Hey, Jen.
Hey, Dana. Hi, everybody.
Welcome to Hypnosis.
And beyond. Today we have Andrew Kippen. He's a hypnotherapist, men's work facilitator, and a transformational coach who helps high achieving professionals break free from unfulfilling careers to create lives of purpose, power, and deep alignment.
Hey, Andrew.
Hey,
Hi,
Dana.
Andrew.
Hi,
Hi, Andrew.
Jennifer.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, great to
Welcome.
see you too.
How did you become a guest on the show of Hypnosis and Beyond?
Oh, wow. I think it's important to just set some context. So I'm coming to you from my house in Santa Ana, Costa Rica. I live just
Mm.
southwest of San Jose, which is the capital here. I'm here as a testament to really listening to my internal voice and really feeling and navigating life in a way that is seeking more aliveness and
Mm.
seeking what feels right for me. And so I would say that's the kind of confluence that brought me here from a 13-year career running tech startup marketing teams into hypnotherapy, into energy work, into men's work, into ultimately deciding to leave the U.S. And come to Costa Rica. Have a little daughter who's 2.5, who's the light of my life, along with my wife Nyla. So um, as we talk about the beyond, right, we can look at hypnosis and we could say, oh, there's a lot of scientific literature to back up hypnosis. And there's lots of studies, and there's very reputable places like the Mayo Clinic and Harvard Med School that talk about hypnosis, that talk about the power of it, and all the different ways that it can be used. And so for me, I've always been interested in all these kind of different aspects of what it's like to be a human, and all of our different abilities, and some would say supernatural powers, but I think they're just very natural. And so, as we talk about, I just want to kind of like lay some groundwork for our conversation. So, um, I really think about science and spirituality as two sides of the same coin, or sorry, yeah, two different sides of the same coin. Um, that science is what is objectively measurable and what we have figured out we can repeat over time. And then spirituality is really what's experienceable, but not yet measurable. So that there are people out there who can see energy, that we can feel the impact of an acupuncture session, a Reiki session, that we can experience psychedelic journeys, but they're not measurable in the traditional scientific sense. But all of it kind of exists within this universe that we're a part of. And so for me, what's been really interesting is the way that hypnotherapy and shamanism and these higher states of consciousness all kind of intersect and overlap. And I've had shamanic tools that I've taught to clients, and then all of a sudden, those places will show up in a hypnotic state. And so there's lots of overlap and lots of places where I think indigenous wisdom and these ancient practices of just getting into our deeper consciousness overlap with modern hypnotherapy, and are essentially, a very similar, if not the same mechanism.
That's a wonderful explanation. And so then how does that translate into some of the work you do with people? That sort of backdrop foundational stuff.
Yeah, so a lot of people come from a rational, materialistic perspective, like I grew up in. For me, if I worked on computers, I loved science, I loved biology and physics, and I was just like, there's some ultimate truth that we can all find. And I was like just looking for that. And I looked for it in Christianity, I looked for it in Buddhism. I was in Christianity, there's a whole science called the apologetics, which is all about how do you prove that Christ was a real person, that he did exist and he did these things that he talked about. Meanwhile, they kind of throw out all of the miracles that were happening in India and Asia at the time. And so for me, I find myself acting a lot of the time as a bridge between people who are hyper rational, who come from this place of, if I can't see it or if science hasn't proved it yet, then it's not valuable to me. Um, I think it's hilarious that we've known about meditation for thousands of years. And yet in the West, we're like, yeah, but we haven't read the study on it yet. And then as soon as the study comes out, we're like, oh, this is okay to do.
Mm.
It's like, okay, all right. It's one way of approaching life. Um, but I think it's much more, for me, it's been much more adventurous, playful, fun to engage with all of these things as though maybe not they're not all 100% truth, but that there is a kernel of truth in all of them. And as we talk about these different abilities, so um, for my work in particular, oftentimes I'm taking these hyper rational intellectual people and I'm plugging them back into their bodies, getting them connected with their inner compass, and helping them kind of wake up to who they are as individuals rather than the default path that society has programmed for them. And that's across the board from, like I see this a lot with a lot of the Ivy League grads that I work with. There's just this like hyper rationalism, hyper achievement. They know how to play the game, they win the game, and then they go, okay, yeah, but what next? And it's all just other opportunities to make money and other opportunities to create impact, but they're so disconnected from who they actually are and from a larger community that they're kind of like, I don't know how to choose. Like, I don't know what variable to optimize here. And I've already made the money. Like, that variable is optimized. Um, and so I work with a lot of people like that to help them uncover who are you at your deepest layers and levels, at your soul level. And we could say, I like to say for people who aren't spiritual, you can also just think of it as like, who are you at your core in your subconscious or your unconscious mind? I don't necessarily need you to believe in the same things that I believe. I don't really care. I just want to be able to plug you into the thing that can help you navigate life. And so I do that in my hypnotherapy. I do it in one-on-one coaching with guys and women. And then I also do men's work. And in my men's work, I work with an organization called Everyman, and it's Everyman. So it's missing the second E. Um, and it was my introduction to regaining that compass. It was my introduction back in 2016 of showing up to a barn in Western Massachusetts with a couple of my friends and a bunch of guys I didn't know and being like, what are we going to do here? Like, what is a men's retreat? And going on this retreat and having an amazing sense of connection, an amazing sense of brotherhood, of it's safe to be fully me here, and also an aliveness, like a deep awakening of supporting other men, of leading them, of feeling an adrenaline rush from just being with somebody in their emotions and letting them really share versus needing to skydive or do drugs or go have like a raucous night out on the town, all of which I've done. And it just something opened up in me during that retreat. And then a few months later I went to their first leadership training. A few months after that, I had a group that I started and I sat in a men's group and I sat for 2 hours every week with the same guys for 4.5 years, um, up to and through the pandemic. And I learned so much. And so I know, I know how many men are kind of wired for this hyper rationality, hyper achievement. Allison Armstrong says like the masculine force is really productive. right? And the feminine in us, and I say masculine and feminine, these are energies that all of us have. The feminine is all about connection. And I sit with guys all the time who are just like, yeah, 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 but I need to do the task. I need to like check the thing off my list and be productive. Um, and they're forgetting like, oh, but there's so much beauty in being able to connect with your partner, your kids, your friends. So I just threw a whole bunch of stuff into the space. I'll let you two just kind of like, I'm curious what resonates and where do you want to double click?
Well, I know that one of the things you said that really stands out to me as possibly a universal human experience is that need for safety.
Hmm.
Certainly something, that is more frequently associated with women, I would say, in general. I don't want to speak for everybody, but in my experience, safety is something that comes up over and over again. For women, it's usually referenced for physical safety, right? But isn't it interesting that you're finding that men aren't feeling in some ways safe enough to be maybe more in their authentic self or exploring who they are? So I just wonder how just that role of safety for men sounds like it's just as important that it is for women.
Yeah. Um, there's a lot of guys who feel safe in different ways than women do, right? I've had experiences. I was at Prospect Park in Brooklyn, where I lived for a long time, and I was walking towards a subway station, and there were two police cars, and it was kind of roped off, and I was like, "Oh, it's fine. We'll just walk to the train station." And my wife, who was with me at the time, was like, "I'm not going anywhere near there." Right? Like, I don't want to be anywhere near where cops are and what might still be an ongoing, situation. And I think for most men, many of the men I am around know this, but for most men, we don't really understand the lack of safety that lives in female bodies. Like it's so programmed into us to live in our heads that we don't even feel the
Mhm.
lack of safety in the same way that women do, because most women are highly attuned to what could harm them. Um, and on the male side, what's interesting is we often don't feel safe to be fully ourselves. So we feel fine in the physical world, um, but being judged, being weak, being vulnerable, not being enough, sharing our sadness, sharing our grief, sharing our shame. Like all of these are things that men are rarely taught or modeled how to do that, and B, don't have a safe place for it. And even with partners, it can often be challenging because oftentimes in a male female dynamic, the woman wants a man who can be steady and who can be on, I don't want to say non-emotional, but not weak. And so sometimes I see this kind of like a guy will go home and share how he's feeling, and his wife will react in a negative way. And it's because she wasn't quite ready to receive that truth, wasn't quite ready to receive him in his vulnerability, in his weakness. And so for a lot of men, I don't know, I'm curious, does that resonate with you? Have you seen men be weak and be like, ooh, I don't like that?
I agree with you. I do think that a lot of women would prefer a man to be a traditional, suck it up and be a man, but yet you want a man who is vulnerable and can speak about his emotions. Jen, what were you going to say?
Well, I think we want everything, right? Like, I jokingly say it in jest. Yes, we want everything. We want, the macho man, and then we want, oh, at the right time, we want that romantic, like poet to come in. So, like that's just being human, right? Like,
Yeah.
we all have to admit that, we're all imperfect. And where does the dialogue start? So, thank you for opening up the dialogue.
Yeah, happily. And look, these are some of the things. These aren't universalities. These are generalities. These are just some of the things that I see in my work with men and working with probably almost 1,000 men at this point over the span of the last 8 years. Um, that so men aren't feeling safe being vulnerable, and I have this great equation that is connection equals vulnerability times time. So we feel connected to each other when we're vulnerable with each other, or if we spend a lot of time not being vulnerable with each other. A lot of times, what I hear from guys who come on an everyman retreat is they go from strangers on a Friday afternoon to being brothers by Sunday because they've been so vulnerable. They've shared the darkest parts of their shadows, and the other man has said, "That's okay. I can still love you, even though you feel that way, or even though that happened." And it's amazing. It's amazing to watch. And my goal is often just to invite guys into a little bit more vulnerability with people that they've spent a lot of time with. And I often will say, growth happens like 1 to 3% beyond our edge, right? We're not trying to overwhelm you. We're not saying like, hey, go share your darkest secret with, your best friend. This is about just like find your edge and walk 1 step further or 2 steps further. So when guys do that, when they start to become vulnerable, they start to share what they're feeling and what's coming up in them. And all of a sudden, we start to be able to draw a map between here's the emotion that you're describing, and here's the sensation that's happening in your body. And we start to clue them in and help them understand, okay, for me, like when my fists are tight or my jaw is tight or I'm feeling energy around my arms from one fist through the top of my chest into another and my jaw is tight, that means that I'm angry. And I get to sit with that and go, what is my anger telling me? Because emotions are just messengers. So we're taking them out of this old frame of you have to be the hardcore Navy SEAL 24/7. And we're getting them to recognize, oh, I have emotions. Emotions are just messengers. And the more emotions I can feel, it's like having access to a big musical keyboard, right? If you're playing a song with 1 octave, you only got so much to work with. But if you expand to the entire keyboard, now your life can be full of all this nuance and all of these beautiful highs and low lows, and you can appreciate all of them. And so once guys start to get vulnerable, they recognize that they're safe. All of a sudden, that connection kicks in, and it's safe for them to be their authentic selves. And one of my favorite parts is in our intro retreat, which is called Open Source. Um, we do a talent show. And on Saturday
How
night,
fun.
guys get up and they sing and they tell jokes and they tell stories and they read monologues. Um, they perform these beautiful things. They'll play musical instruments. We had one guy beatbox. Um, and it's amazing to recognize, like, wow, there's so much more to these humans than my brain was telling me when we started. And as we do this work, we're really dropping guys out of their head into their body so they can start to listen and feel this kind of inner compass of where am I going? What do I need? Do I need to, do get the best grades possible, go to an Ivy League school, work for McKinsey or Bain or Google, like get that job where I'm restructuring companies or I'm getting people to click on an ad and I'm making $300,000 a year? Or am I meant for something more than just generating income? And we start to help guys understand like all of the pieces of you are here for a reason. And that's really my work. That's not the work of every man, but in my work, I love this idea of waking people up to the path of their own life rather than the default path that their family
Mhm.
or their society kind of programmed into them,
Yeah.
and helping them understand like your soul is here for a reason. You've got all these passions and skills and values and desires for a reason. So can we tune into that and help you find a life that helps you feel incredibly fulfilled, and a life full of meaning where you're only sacrificing stuff if it's in service to the greater meaning. And for most of us, I- it's not as required these days,
Yeah.
you know? So I can work remotely here from Costa Rica. I get to be a coach, and a hypnotherapist, which I absolutely love, showing up for people in this way and being playful and being kind of silly with them, and sitting in God's waiting room with one client, and then finding spirit animals with another client, and then healing a phobia with another client. Um, and then helping them once they're awakened to themselves and connected to themselves. How do we seek aliveness? How does that become the variable that we're maximizing, so that you're feeling alive, you're feeling an adventure, you're feeling like I'm in flow with who I am? And that's really the focus of my larger kind of work as a whole, is awakening and alivening.
Love it. Genius. So is there anything you might be willing to do with us today, with our audience? That is there a little technique or a certain question or some, I don't know. Does something come to mind that maybe we could play around with right now?
Yeah, happily. Happily. My friend Aaron Brandt, who's an amazing attachment style therapist, and I put on a workshop, and it was all about how to regulate the nervous system quickly. And I know we all love additional tools for that. So I really like Jennifer's squeezing of the fingers, that she shared from Mike Mandel. Um, I really like this one. This one I've used. I had a panic attack on an airplane, and I was able to get rid of it in about 90 seconds using these techniques. Um, so I'm happy to share. We're going to start off, and we're just going to, what we're really playing with here is vagal, the vagus nerve, and vagal kind of stimulation. So this right here in the middle, or right above your breastplate, in the middle of your chest, is where your vagus nerve is closest to the surface. So we're just going to start off patting, kind of sliding from top to bottom with the back of our hand, this area. And I'm going to open this so I don't have any buttons in the way. But just start. This is number one. So just start stroking that area, top to bottom. And Aaron always says, imagine you're petting a dog and you want it to feel that you're petting it. So just stroking right there. And then step two is belly breathing. So sending your breath down into your belly. Number three is sighing on the exhale. So we're stroking our chest. We're breathing into our bellies. We're sighing on the exhale. And the reason nervous system regulation is so important, there's a great TED talk by a guy named Jaak Panksepp. And he talks about how we have these different systems in our neurology, but none of them can function properly if we don't feel safe. And so by regulating our nervous system, we allow more play, we allow more creativity, more connection. And if you want to go even deeper, you can start to turn your head from side to side. So we're stimulating the vagus nerve in your neck when we do this. And all of these are things that would be turned off. You wouldn't be able to do them if you were in fight or flight. So your neck would be locked forward, your breath would be shallow, your sigh might sound like, right? So we're just telling our body we're safe by doing all the things that are possible when we are safe. Oh. And while you're turning your head, just take a moment. This is number 5. So number 4 is turning your head to side. Number 5 is looking at the room that you're in, the space that you're in, and noticing the floor is connected to the walls. The walls are connected to the ceiling. And just noticing how safe you are in this space. And as you look around, you can look in the corners. Just notice there's no predators here. There's no person hiding in the corner. It's going to jump out at you. Just recognize and say to yourself, I'm safe right here. So, number 4, turning your head from side to side. Number 5, looking at the room around you, recognizing how you're protected and safe. And number 6, this is a great standalone. So um, once you're here, I'm going to give you, you can incorporate this into the end of this process, or you can do it as a standalone, but you're just going to interlink your fingers with your palms facing towards you. And you're going to put your palms on the back of your head. Great. And then you're going to keep your head pointed forward, and you're going to look all the way to the left, just with your eyes. And you're going to hold this until you sigh or yawn. So this is a nice little hack for the nervous system. Just looking to the left as far as you can. And then whenever you feel your parasympathetic nervous system activate, you feel that yawn or sigh, look to the other side. So head still pointed forward, but eyes all the way to the right. And keep breathing. Eyes all the way to the right until you find that sigh or that yawn. And so this is literally you taking your body out of fight or flight and going, I'm safe. I'm all good. So I'll check in with you two. How you feeling after? Jen's got a nice stretch and peaceful
Yeah, I had to
face.
put the audio off because I was making too much noise.
So how are you two feeling after that?
That was wonderful. I feel really
Yeah.
calm and relaxed.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. And like I said, took me from um, a total panic attack on an airplane to, oh, I'm good. I'm safe in like 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. Just by
Amazing.
calming, yeah, just by calming my physical body down, my brain was able to follow.
I can do anything.
Ah, peace.
Ah.
Yeah, and for our NLP practitioners, you can just also anchor that in
Mhm.
however you want. If you want to touch a thumb and a finger together, maybe just feel a nice sigh.
I like it. Jen, do you have any other questions for him before we proceed?
Yeah, I do.
Great.
I just have one question actually about just how someone would sign up for you for these groups or, your online workshops or offerings.
Yeah, happily. Um, so my personal website is subconsciousway.com. And if you search for my name or Subconscious Way, it'll come up. I typically see people for kind of usually issues take 1 to 3 sessions. So 1 to 3 hypnotherapy sessions, or for one-on-one coaching. which is usually 6 months minimum. And I have people who stay with me for years and years, and we kind of give their whole life a makeover. But specifically, I help people transition out of lucrative, kind of high paying first careers into careers that are more heart aligned, that are more in alignment with who they are and what they want to offer to the world. And we can start from, your I have clients who worked at Google or big banks, and I see them all the way through the transition into helping them create a business, helping them market it and develop their offers and do all of that. um, for men who maybe want to check out Everyman, the website's everyman.com. We have a couple of retreats. We have kind of like a first level, second level retreat, first level, second level course. Each of the courses are about a month with one meeting per week. Those are really a great opportunity to dive into a new blueprint for masculinity, creating safety for you and for the people around you, as well as starting to understand um, how important your emotions are, how important your body is in helping you navigate life. And membership starts at, I think it's $40, $40 to $50 a month. That gets you yoga once a week, breath work once a week, and basically what we call a dig, or a drop-in group that you can go and attend every single day, on different topics. So topics of career and work, being a dad. I run one on spirituality, relationships. So whatever you need help with, there's a place for you to show up and just share authentically. And it's, less than the cost of one session of therapy. It's an amazing, amazing deal. And then we run retreats and courses periodically throughout the year.
Amazing.
Love it.
Yeah.
Sounds like we would all benefit from that.
It's an amazing resource. And, I think a lot of uh, women have like led the way in being nurturing, being caring, being in touch with our emotions. And we are, there's this interesting phenomenon. I know we're wrapping up, but I think this is really interesting of like, I was born in 1981, so I'm 44 now. I grew up in a world where I was aware of the gender pay gap, the inequality of men and women, the male dominated world, and the unhealthy patriarchy that was running the show. Um, and in 1999, we experienced this cultural phenomenon where we have The Matrix, American Beauty, and Fight Club all come out in that year.
Hmm.
And one of my teachers shared this with me, and my mind was blown. And each of those are about kind of a reckoning that the characters come to between the life that they're living and who they actually are, and what's underneath the surface, right? We're starting to see the yin and yang, the masculine and feminine polarity in these characters. And we're headed towards balance. We're headed towards this awareness of both sides. And in 2001, we get 9/11, and then the whole thing shifts back into the hyper masculine, and we get shows like 24, and enrollment in the military spikes, and we have this whole new wave of hyper masculinity that we have to overcome. And on the heels of that, now we're at a place where I don't know the latest numbers on the gender pay gap, but I know that more women are graduating from college than men. I know that women are doing better in school than men, um, and that a lot of guys are being left behind. A lot of guys don't know what it means to be a man in a world where there's so many options for being a human. There's so many genders, there's so many sexualities, there's so many expressions of manhood. And I think this training with Everyman is an amazing blueprint for not necessarily picking a specific expression, but just saying, hey, here's all this stuff. This is how your brain and your body work. if you understand that and you can get in touch with the deepest parts of who you are, great, bring that out into the world. And if there's an unhealthy expression of that that needs some healing, we got you. If there's a healthy expression that needs amplification, that you want to bring more, you want to create something out of who you are, great, we can help you with that too. um, and it's such a powerful thing, and I'm excited for society to come back into more of a, I don't know, that balance always feels a little static for me, so let's say a harmony between men and women and the masculine and the feminine that exists between all of us. um, yeah, and it's such a powerful platform, so I encourage guys to at least check it out for a month and sign up for our foundations course, and it'll be an incredible impact to your life.
Wow. Love it. Nice.
Amazing.
Well, that brings us to our next segment, which is our silly subconscious question. And so, our
Ooh.
question for you today, Mr. Andrew, is which animal, if they were posting on social media, would be the funniest and why?
Which animal? Uh Man, I'll tell you where my subconscious goes immediately to giraffes, because they have such a unique perspective and they get to see everything that's going on around them. And then the second animal was a meerkat, just because I think they run around looking like stand-up comics, like they're ready to stand at the microphone already.
Nice. And the next question is that we'd like to ask you is what is your beyond? What is beyond your coaching practice and everything that lights you up?
um, I'll say right now I am really lit up by studying with a gentleman named Robert Gilbert, who unfortunately passed away in February. But he has courses online with an organization called Vesica. And Robert is one of these unique individuals who was a Marine. He was a nuclear scientist or nuclear engineer. And he took all of this kind of nerdy brain power and determination and will and applied it to the spiritual sciences. And so he studied all of the different kind of mystery school traditions, all of the different world religions, all of these different practices. And Vesica is his attempt to integrate and teach. And I really love the way that he teaches. I love some of the practices that I'm getting from Vesica. And for me, the most fascinating thing is just, if we go back to that initial definition of spirits and spiritual science and spirituality, I love exploring spirituality through the lens of a scientist and trying things out and experimenting and seeing, what does a meditation give me? What does going to a certain place allow me to do differently? And so I'm really loving his course on spiritual sciences.
Sounds
Yeah, it
fascinating. We'll have to look that one up.
does.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Amazing.
It's awesome.
Excellent. Well, we so appreciate you stopping by today and spending some time with us. We can't wait to talk with you again another time. And with that, what do we always say, Jen?
Peace out.
Peace out.